Hey, Lee Goff here, and welcome to another episode of the Agency Success GPS. I have one of the top influencers on the planet. Jeff Bullas is here with me today. Very honored to have Jeff on my podcast. And when I say this guy is one of the top influencers, it's not just me saying it. Forbes, Entrepreneur Mac, you name it. Okay, this guy has been listed in the top 10 or 20 influencers on the planet in all major publications. I would highly advise you to go check out jeffbullas.com and check out just some of the amazing resources this guy has. He is such a wealth of knowledge. And I actually love the topic we're going to be talking about today, and that is, do you do personal hygiene every day? Like shave every day and do toothbrushing? This is going to be a great episode. Jeff, thank you so much for coming on my podcast all the way in Australia. That took quite the logistical hurdle to get all the timing and everything set up. So how are you doing over there?
I'm doing great, and thank you for the opportunity to be on your show. So I live in Sydney, Australia, so we're doing physical distancing quite well. We've got that nailed. 20,000 kilometers of it, most probably. It was maybe 14,000, actually. I might be lying, a little bit exaggerating at 20. But here we go. We're 14,000 Ks away and having a high definition chat, which is what's fabulous about this tech we're using today. I love it.
I absolutely love it. Well, I did a little bit of an intro coming in here, but I did not do you justice. So how about you take about, do an elevator pitch real quick on who you are, how you got there, and, how you can help people. So.
Well, let me tell you a little story. I suppose that may be the best way to do it, because in Australia, if you talk about yourself too much, it's called bragging. In America, it's called marketing. We
That's true. Anyway, oh man, that's so good.
Yeah. But we in Australia have what a real syndrome. It's called the tall poppy syndrome, where we don't talk about ourselves very much. So I'm just going to tell a story or two, and we'll take it from there. So,
okay, perfect.
You sort of asked, how did it all start? Well, it started at a very young age. That's what happens when you're born, but I won't go into details on that. But
and after my last ass wiping, my mom said, "Get a job," and here I am. So, all right.
Yeah, that's right. So let's start shortly after I turned 50. It took me a long time to discover why. Excuse me. It took me quite a while to discover why I was on this planet, and but some of us are slow learners, and but at the age of 50, I was in the middle of a divorce, lost a family home, had to close down a business, and essentially was homeless. So my brother actually took me in, and so I went and lived with him for a year. And I discovered a lot of things about my brother, because he was an accountant, so he's very organized. So when I moved in with him, I opened his pantry door. He had a beautifully organized pantry door. And I said, boy, I better be on my best behavior. He had actually everything categorized, and he had a spare one behind each one. So when one ran out, he knew there was another one to be ordered. Yep. So
that's impressive. I am not that guy, but
yeah, no. Well, I'm relatively organized, but my brother took it to a whole new level. And but we spent a year. Got another job in real estate, and I got to know my brother actually really well. So there's a downside to everything. It's looking for that silver lining that's really, really important. And you don't learn from comfort; you learn from discomfort.
One of my mentors told me, change begins at the end of your comfort zone. I didn't mean to interrupt, but that is so true. You learn from discomfort beyond a shadow of a doubt.
So what happened was, I started dating again, and it was a lady I was going out with, and she said, you should be on Facebook. So I got into Facebook and went, and I logged in, put all my information in. And this is the day before Facebook did any advertising. There was only about 40 or 50 million globally on it. It was pretty early days. So I went in and went, as I typed stuff in, all these people all around the world that were my colleagues and people I'd gone to college with, a lot of them came up in the screen saying you should connect. And I went, wow, this is amazing. And also some little inkling of social media when my children, actually, or teenagers as they were then, would rush up after dinner to actually leap onto MySpace. So I'd seen that sort of, and I started to observe the same activity on Facebook, that addictive behavior. So that was really fascinating to observe. And because at the time I wasn't working really hard, so I had plenty of time on my hands. And so And then I read a book by Tim Ferriss called The 4 Hour Work Week, which opened my eyes to new digital entrepreneurship models, where you could do things virtually. I think Tim talked about selling stuff on Amazon. I can't remember exactly. And then I read a book by David Meerman Scott called The New Rules of Marketing and PR. Now, David wrote this book, which is about the power of online content to attract an audience to you. One little thing tipped me into the world of blogging, which is where it all started in 2008, and then started blogging in 2009. I read this blog post by HubSpot said, if you have an inkling of what you want to start a business on, or you want to write about, start a blog. So in March 2009, I wrangled and wrestled with WordPress and started up a really, really badly designed blog called jeffbullas.com. I workshopped that name for a week. We had called in experts.
Yeah. The 4 pillars of a brand. You got to make sure JEF.
That's right. So it's really fascinating, and not really. It was quite boring, but we got the blog up. And then I was on a mission to get some attention, because everyone goes, oh, once you go online, everyone sees you. I said, no, when you go online, you don't exist still. You just happen to live in this vortex or hole that is anonymous. No one knows who you are. Because on the planet, we've got approaching, I think, 8 billion people. So the next job was to get my website traffic up. So I used tools, I watched it every day. I discovered that Twitter was fantastic. So I joined Twitter in December 2008. And I found a tool recently that actually showed me what my first tweet was. And of course, it was very, very insightful, very deep, full, and a lot of meaning. It was a very short sentence. It was watching the cricket. Now I'm going to explain this to Americans.
The sport, right?
Okay. Yeah. So anyway, when I shared that story on Twitter one day, someone said, they came back to me with a question going, what was the cricket doing? And I went, he's obviously not Australian or English.
Right.
I said, it's a sport. We play a strange game in Australia, which is with bat and ball. It's basically like baseball, but we play it for 5 days. Sometimes there's no result after 5 days. Men toil in the field for actually up to 6 hours a day. And sometimes it's a draw. So there you go. That's cricket, really.
I did not know they can last for 5 days,
yes.
6 hours a day. Really?
Yes.
I don't know if that's good, or I don't know what the hell I think about that, but that's different. I like it, kind of. I think I want to. Well, what do you do? You can't broadcast it on TV. I mean, how does that work? You don't sit there for 5 days and watch a cricket match, do you?
Well, as a teenager, I used to. So it's quite fascinating just watching people run up and down, bowl a ball, turn around, and come back and bowl another ball. It's basically like really, really slow baseball.
Okay. I can relate to that. Now that I can relate to, but still, that's only a day and a half. You know what I'm saying? It's not really. It's like 4 hours or whatever. But 5 anyway. That's pretty cool. I'm going to look into that. So.
Yeah. So I had to explain to some American friends what cricket was, and that was my first deep, insightful sentence on Twitter. Watching the cricket. The cricket. The cricket. Not
the
watching
cricket.
Yeah,
it's kind of like it's kind of like the Facebook, right? So
that's right. So anyway, so I started the blog, and really it was an experiment to see if this content attracting an audience and growing business out of this was. And I didn't write a business plan because it was just a passion project. At the time, I joined a digital agency, and I was helping build online stores, websites with online stores, and but that was a really good day job to do. So what happened was, for 4 years, I got up at 4:30 a.m. and wrote content 5 days a week until I started my day job. And I used Twitter to get my content out there. I automated it so strongly that I got banned on Twitter for a Friday afternoon. I remember I was just horrified that Twitter had actually paused me for a little while because I'd broken their laws, right? So anyway, we
started jail.
Yeah, that's right. So, and then try and talk to a person after that. Good luck with that.
Not happening. So.
No, it's not going to happen. So anyway, so what happened was the traffic started growing. So, and within a few years, we'd reached 5 million visitors a year. We had nearly 600,000 people on Twitter following. And guess what? I discovered that creating content online to attract an audience worked. So the social experiment of actually being a content creator online and being persistent about it and relentless work. So David Meerman Scott's tip, and I got to meet David actually. He was a bit of my hero when I initially met. And I got to meet David for lunch one day in Sydney a few years ago. And
That's cool.
We've been friends ever since. So he was an inspiration. And so what happened was I started working at this agency shortly after I started the blog. And about a year in, I got approached by a gentleman called Johnny Henriksen. Now, Johnny Henriksen was a New Zealander. He got this short email. It was the grammar wasn't great, but it was simple. And he said, do you want to come over to New Zealand and run a workshop on social media? Because my topic of the blog was on social media. I became the social media guy when social media was the Wild West. It's grown up a lot since then.
It has,
as
yeah.
we know. We're in industrial social media now. It's corporatized, it's industrialized. It's become, as we know, Facebook is one of the biggest companies on the planet.
Yes, it is.
In terms of market valuation. So, but when I joined, there was only 40, 50 million people, and actually it was quite a small business. So what happened was Johnny said, do you want to come over and I'll actually pay you to run a workshop? So I went over to New Zealand, and it was my first paid revenue gig or revenue generation from the blog. And then I got invited to Italy, and then started getting paid to speak all around the world and on the topic of social media. Because back then, social media was this new, brave frontier, the Wild West, where everyone's trying to work out what do you do with it. And so this passion project got so distracting that the bosses of the company I was working for, I started to take leave without pay because I was traveling overseas to speak at events. They said, oh, Jeff, look, you're really not interested in selling our stuff or our shit. So we're actually going to cut you down to 3 days a week. I said, no, I need a full-time job. Anyway, so what happened was I got myself slowly fired. And my partner, Tony, said, you're getting a bit older, Jeff. You need a full-time job. You can't go out on your own. So I think I actually, in a sort of Freudian way, got myself slowly fired by being so distracted at work that eventually I did lose my day job, and the passion project escaped the lab. So
well, when you're an entrepreneur and your mind sinks its teeth into something, good luck. You know what I mean? Like, there's no letting it go. You know what I mean? Like you can't sleep for 2 weeks, or whatever it is, and you can't let it go. I can't. I mean, like I said, when I sink my teeth into something that's an entrepreneur, I'm like, let's go. Right. So, and I feel like that's what happened. Is that kind of what you think happened? You're so fired up about it, so excited about it. You just, had to do it. So.
Yeah. What was fascinating to me in reflection was I was just so, passionate about it, so driven that I got up at 4:30 a.m. each morning for 5 days a week for 4 years. I don't get up at 4:30 a.m. anymore. Wish I had that, but I suppose I got to a point where I'd hit the throttles on the jumbo jet. We had done launch and takeoff, and then we could cut back to actually make it a more sustainable business because I couldn't keep getting up at 4:30 a.m. to write. Right. And of course, as we know in business, I was doing all the writing, I was doing all the work, and then I had to work out a way to actually scale it and put in place systems and processes so I could actually create content at scale. And so that's what we've been doing. So the business happened almost by accident. After the age of 50, it was my passionate purpose to actually try and help people.
That's cool.
Get their voice out to the world. Because what I loved about it, social media, was it allowed you to bypass the gatekeepers, the media moguls that you had to pay money to do a full page ad and then go on TV or go on radio. And I went, wow, I can actually get my voice out to the world even in a small way. Not necessarily going to change the world, make a big dent in the universe like Steve Jobs did.
Right.
and the big boys in town. But for me, it was my own way of actually sharing my opinions and ideas with the world. And
Yeah,
that was,
yeah.
so that's what I loved about social media. Now, here's an interesting thing on this. What's happening is the media moguls now are just changing. They're now becoming the Zuckerbergs and the Googles. They are become, yeah. So what's happened is we're moving very much from a world of organic social media, and this happened 2013, 14. It started because the big boys, Google and Facebook, had to make money. Facebook went public, and suddenly the organic reach just dropped and dropped and dropped. And today, you do need to pay mostly to get attention, unless you're a big personality.
Like a Jeff Bullas. Yeah, exactly. Yes.
No. I don't.
Well, we need to get you put some unbelievably important questions into this thing, right? So we need to at least address one of them, and then we'll get on to something else. But
yeah, okay. Because Lee asked me some questions, right, that I should ask, and I'm going, oh God, we're just having a conversation. So I'm going.
So the 3 questions he put in there: do you shave every day? Should you use a toothbrush every day? And what is something secret that not many people know about you? I tell you what, answer number 3, I'm hoping you do the first 2. I'm just going to jump on that record. Shaving, I don't care, whatever. I'll let you can handle that. The toothbrush thing, you might want to get on that. But what's something secret about you that most people don't know? And then I'm going to ask you another question about social media. So.
Okay. So I have a confession to make. I like wearing Lycra.
Like wearing what?
Lycra.
What the hell is Lycra? What is Lycra? I mean, I should know this. I feel like I should know this.
It's very thin, light clothing that you wear when you ride a bike.
Oh, spandex. We call that spandex over here. Okay, I got you.
Right. Okay. We've got a language problem. Okay. Right. So here we go. So.
Okay. Tights. You like to wear tights. Now that we know that, that's actually going to be in the podcast. Jeff Bullas wears tights. Loves tights. You know what I'm saying? That's going to be the tagline right there. So
yeah.
All right. So I got. Go ahead.
Yeah. So just to finish that, I am a mammal. MAMIL. Middle-aged man in Lycra. So yeah.
That'll work. But in self, full disclosure, you also ride a lot of road bikes and things like that. So that's that's
so I'm a road cyclist, and we've actually went to France a couple of years ago, and we've climbed some of the
Tour de France stuff.
We've done some of the Tour de France climbs.
Wow.
So if you think you're riding a mountain around where you are, go to France, do Alpe d'Huez.
Yeah.
Right. It's 14 kilometers of 10% plus gradient. And when you get to the top, you're in a world of pain. In fact, you've been in pain for the last 2 or 3 hours. But you get some real respect, I tell you, for the athletes that do that. One of the South America, it took me over 2 hours to climb that, right? One of the South American riders did it in 38 minutes. It's just mind-boggling. You get some real respect for the athleticism and the training that's gone into the Tour de France riders. Anyway, I digress.
Well, actually, that's I live on the lake just north of Atlanta, Lake Lanier, but just about 45 minutes this way, we have the Appalachian Mountains, and they had the pre-qualifier to Tour de France there for years. It's called Tour de Georgia, and they chose it because it was a tough ride, but it wasn't a 14 kilo, it wasn't anything like that. Max Brasstown Bald is like 4,300 feet, of which would be I guess that's about 12,000
1,200 meters. Yep.
Yeah, 1,200 meters. And so long story short is that man, you see true athletes. I mean, they're badasses. I mean, like, it's unbelievable to see these. I don't think about riding a bike. I guess a lot of people don't think about riding a bike as like a sport, but it definitely, it is a full-fledged professional athletic. I mean, it is badass. I mean, they would flood into that town for like 2 weeks. They'd come in the week before to practice on the course, and then I think it's like 4 days or 4 or 5 days that they did the race. It started on like a Wednesday and ended like on a Sunday kind of thing. Man, that was impressive. I mean, super impressive. These teams, it's not just the athletes, the teams behind them with all these bikes and everything. It's super impressive. I mean, it was so cool. So cool. So, all right, I got a question for you. Ready?
Yep. Fire away.
All right. Top 3 things, if you're getting into social media, you'd advise someone to do.
Number 1, learn to use very good digital advertising that's paid. Don't expect it to be organic. That's number one.
Definitely.
Number two, you need to test the different platforms. As in, don't assume that your video ad, your banner ad, whatever ad you're running is going to work. You need to test. And we typically will sometimes test up to 72 different formats of an ad. The other one is not only test the ads, also test the platforms. So we recently tested, we've been promoting the YouTube channel for the Jeff Bullas Show, which is a new podcast we launched in March this year. And we tested Google video ads versus Facebook ads. And the difference was one cost 5 times more than the other. So don't expect that one platform is going to perform the same as the other. So test your marketing tactics as well as test your platforms.
Definitely. Great advice. All right. So I just got one more question, then we'll probably wrap it up here pretty soon. But you just got through saying something that hit home with me, and that was the ability to create content at scale. And the reason that hit home with me is because that's what I have been working on for the past 6 months. I've been reloading my coaching business over here, and new brand, new products, new everything. But the biggest push that we had was, okay, Lee, you're a coach now, and that's an informational kind of a educational type business. And I took a lot of the professional services mindsets into this, and it kind of hurt me a little bit. I mean, when I say hurt me, it just I didn't know how important it was to be able to do what you said, and that is be able to create content world-class content at scale. Mm-hmm. And I just went through that process, and so now I record content for one day a month for about 6 to 8 hours in the podcast and YouTube videos and things like that. And then I get it to my team, and then they just boom, it spits out 350 to 400 unique pieces of content for each platform, YouTube videos and everything else, right? And so, but it took me a long time. It took me about 6 months to dial that in, because it's hard. It's a lot harder than I gave it credit for coming into it. So my question to you is, anybody out there looking to start to get into the content world, writing a blog's not hard. Creating content at scale is hard. If you're going to give a couple of pointers on creating content at scale from someone who's been doing it for a long time at a very, very high level, what do you want to give me? You got a couple of pointers or 2 or 3 pointers or anything you want to give somebody?
Number one thing which I had trouble giving up was actually, as I built traffic and attention to the blog when I started, and as it grew, I decided to actually get other people to write for me. And so we gave them attention, and they wrote for free for us. So that was one way of doing it. In other words, building a big enough presence, which can take time. So that's maybe a difficult thing to do. But the one that I'm really enjoying at the moment is, and one of the reasons is I started the Jeff Bullas Show podcast, was the ability to take content and turn it into a variety of media. So, for example, we can just like you're about to do here, and I do it too, is you record it in audio, you record it in video, and then you go to a place like, after you've done it, then you've got those 2 formats. Then what you do is you send it off to rev.com. Within hours, they come back with a transcript. So it's in text. So you have 3 different media. Boom, done.
Yep.
But then what you do then is you create, not only upload the audio to Spotify and to iTunes, and then to Google as well, Google Podcasts.
I use Buzzsprout, and it syndicates it to all of them. So
yeah. Well, I use Libsyn as my hosting service, and again, that sends it off to about 10 different locations. Yeah. And then what we're doing is we created the YouTube channel for the podcast, where then we actually carve it up into snippets. So we got 5-minute, different 5-minute sections of videos taken out of maybe an hour and a half chat or a 30-minute chat. We carved it up into snippets of content. So we're creating, literally dozens of pieces of content out of one episode of just 40 minutes. And so the podcasts are actually, I believe, at a really interesting phase now. And I think starting a podcast is one of the best ways to actually scale your brand and also scale content.
Well, I'll tell you what, I'm glad you said that, because that's exactly where I ended up after unbelievable. I should have just called your ass in the first place, but I mean, unbelievable effort into figuring out exactly. I mean, everybody says does a podcast. Everybody, well, hey, do a podcast. It's easy. Just record audio. It's all right. I mean, it's like, well, and it is easy to do. This part is the easiest part of the whole thing, right? But taking this and we call it repurposing content. So we'll take this podcast, and it'll then be put on, like you said, YouTube. It'll be put into all the podcast directories. We also put it, we get it transcribed, and then that transcription, I have my content writer actually go in there and actually write it all out. So they get it in text for us, but then I have a writer go in there and do it all up. So that was the blog. On the blog, we have the podcast embed and the YouTube. So now we're getting organic SEO linking back and forth between all the different platforms. It's obviously SEO'd out on the blog. Then we take both the podcast and the YouTube video, and we have a service that we use. We upload it to that service, and they will literally take it every single day for every business day of the month, and they take like a 2-minute clip out of it, and they'll repurpose that into like 9 or 10 different pieces of content, all pre-formatted for the different platforms. In my case, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, and Facebook, right? Mm-hmm. And it's awesome. It's awesome. But it took me for bloody freaking forever to figure that out. And so that's why I wanted to ask that question. So if we can help some other people, and I've got a lot of resources, a lot of contacts. I'm calling people who know what the hell they're doing. And when I'd ask them, hey, what is your content process? Oh yeah, we just record it, we put it up. And I'm like, I mean, yeah, you are creating content, but you're definitely leaving the overwhelming majority of the potential on the table when you do that. So I didn't say that to them at the time. I was just thinking in my head, like, that's not what I'm seeing other people do. So I kept having to dive into it. But now I've got it to where it takes about 6 to 8 hours of my time a month. And it produces 4 to 6 blog articles, 4 to 6 YouTube videos at a minimum. We actually wound up getting about 15 YouTube videos out of that time. And then it also does about 4 podcasts. And so, and the social media piece is like 350, 400 pieces of content that's generated out of this. So we're looking at about probably close to, 400, 450 unique, really world-class pieces of content that we just, it's a machine. That's just, you turn on and just keep going. And I will say the hardest part was getting the damn thing set up. But now that it's set up, I'm loving it, and I should have done it sooner. And I advise everybody out there to get the machine going as soon as possible. Content is king. We all know it. Google said it years ago. Content is king, and it's not going away, right? And as a matter of fact, you're living proof of how content is king, right? I mean, your content has put you right where you're at, and you're in a good spot, right? So, yeah, definitely. Well, Jeff, we have a segment in my podcast. It's called the Shameless Plug Moment, and so you get pretty much as much time as you want to plug whatever the hell you want to. Keep it legal, and try to keep it legal. I don't care about the PG part, but what do you got any projects you want to plug, or shameless plug podcast?
Well, the only thing I would mention, which I've already have, is the Jeff Bullas show, which we've started this year, and it's an evolution of the blog and the website, and we're taking that to a whole new level. And what we're doing is interviewing some of the most fascinating entrepreneurs from all around the world, especially those that are focusing on the digital space, where it's just, what I'm loving is the conversations. Mm-hmm. So we put that on across the different platforms like iTunes and Spotify, of course. Also, we turn it into a YouTube channel as well with the video. So, come and visit me at jeffbullas.com, or go and check out the Jeff Bullas show. We're having a lot of fun there. And what's one of the great things about podcasts is that when you sit down with someone for 30 to 40 minutes and have a conversation, a fireside chat, you build relationships. Guess what? If you want to be happy, don't chase money, chase relationships. All right. So I'm calling it the Happiness Project, frankly. So
go ahead. You can go ahead and take the mic at that moment in time and drop it and walk off, because that is the saying. That is the saying of this episode. If you want happiness and you want financial security, do not chase money, chase relationships. That is the key. That is 100. And that's it. Drop the mic, walk off. Okay, shut it down. We're out of here. We got to leave now. Okay, that was that was it. So, Jeff, thank you so much, man. I know you're so busy. I know it's early morning over there. You got to get your day going over there. So I really appreciate you taking the time. I really appreciate you taking the time to come on and just share some of your wisdom and kind of how you got the whole content machine going. And I'm sure my audience will reach out and get a lot out of this. So I thank you very, very much. Any parting thoughts or anything you want to leave everybody with?
Yep. Don't overcomplicate things. If you want to start creating content, like what Lee talked about in terms of doing all that content creation, you don't have to do it like that initially. Start simple, and then chunk it down, get to complicated later. All right.
Yep.
Keep it simple. Get to complicated later. So chunk it down and keep it simple. Just do audio, which is what we did initially. Now we're getting more complicated.
Yeah. And by the way, that's what I
did.
did. Yeah, that's what I did. I evolved into this complex machine I got now, but I did exactly what Jeff just said. Just keep it simple. Get started. Put the left foot in front of the right foot. Do it again the next day, and you'll see success. So.
Yep. So done is better than perfect. Get started.
Always.
Yep.
All right. On that note, everybody have a great day, and y'all stay safe out there. Okay.
Hello, everyone. I hope you enjoyed this episode. And of course, let's get you over to the next episode. If you have not already, make sure to subscribe to my podcast. And if you are not following us on YouTube or in our private Facebook group, make sure to get over there and check those out as well. And of course, we're also always available at marketingagencycoach.com. Look forward to seeing you on all those channels. And I hope you're having a wonderful day.